to this episode of Gen AI Live. My name is Brian Terry, and I'm a Senior Partner Solution Architect here at AWS. And I'm also on the Bedrock go-to-market team focusing on Gen AI migrations. And I'm joined here with my good friend and co-host, Wayne Sachs. Wayne, how would you introduce yourself?
Thank you, Brian. Great to be here. Hi, my name is Wayne Sachs. I'm a Partner Solutions Architecture Leader here at AWS, and it's always a pleasure to be with you, Brian, with our guests, and with our audience every Wednesday from 8 to 9 a.m. Pacific here on Gen AI Live, where we talk about all things generative AI, particularly with the types of things we see from AWS partners. And really ultimately, all the stuff that we're trying to do to help our mutual customers make use of this new and evolving technical landscape. It's always a hectic, it's always a lot going on. It's hectic. Anything, Brian, that you saw in the last week that you think the audience might enjoy hearing about?
Oh, absolutely. Claude 4.0 just came out, and now it's on Bedrock. So I'm super excited to announce that you can use Claude 4.0 on Bedrock, and it is super awesome.
Yeah, that was the big one, right? Claude on Bedrock. That was just super excited to see how fast we got that up and running. I don't know that we talked about it last week, but Strands launching was also a big one for agent design. I think it's going to make a huge difference in how quickly we can produce high quality agents. And I personally really like its ability to expose telemetry for operational management. I'm all about doing these things at scale, and I think that's really critical. So that was a big one for me. And I know partners who I've spoken with are super jazzed about it.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, it's just great to see all this new innovation just happening from week to week.
Yeah. Brian, I think your audio is a little funky. I'm just gonna say, because it's hard for me to hear, and I'm seeing that it's hard for the audience to hear. So while you figure that out, I'm just gonna say we have a really exciting show for everybody today. We've got a partner, we've got an AWS team to talk about some work that they're doing, and since Brian's gonna be fiddling with his audio, why don't we bring on our friends from Kalin, who are here to tell us all about some extremely cool stuff that they are doing.
Awesome.
Hi, Randall. How are you?
I'm doing well. How are you guys?
Doing well. Doing very well. Yijay, good to see you. We just
Hey, Wayne.
just saw
Hey,
you
Brian.
30 seconds ago, so it's nice to see you again.
I already miss
Can you
you.
guys, why don't you introduce yourselves? Tell us a little bit about Kalin, a little about you, and then we're really going to want to talk about the good stuff, which is generative AI.
Yeah. So hi, I'm Randall. I'm Kalin's CTO. We're going to talk today about how we think about Genful architectures. I'll give a little spiel on Kalin with a little slide in a second here. But Guille, want to introduce yourself?
Yep, I'm Guille. I'm an architect at the innovation area at Kalin. Wearing the hoodie, of course.
And then I've got some slides I can walk through to sort of talk through Kalin itself and what we do and how we think about Genful architectures. So
I think I got the right one. That's you.
Yeah. So Kalin, I mean, you're all in on AWS Premier Tier Consulting Partner. What that means is we just build cool stuff. So people come to us with ideas. They want to build something, and we go and we get it done. We work with everyone from startups to Fortune 10 companies to giant private equity firms with trillions of dollars under management to airlines to everything in between. We have 16 different AWS competencies. We've got a number of different service delivery designations. We do everything from training custom models to building, startup implementations for new apps. So it's good fun. It's a great job if you have a little bit of product ADHD and you want to jump around to lots of different things. And we've won a couple of different Partner of the Year streams. And then, before we talk about some case studies, I wanted to jump in and just say, since November of 2022, the world has been taken with generative AI, and agentic and agentful systems have recently come into play. But agentic is really just an umbrella term for something we were already doing. You know, we were building stuff with tools from the beginning. I don't know if people remember OpenAI's, plugin.yaml and all those other things from the very early days. So I kind of get frustrated when people jump on this term agents, because it's really, the way we think about it is the same thing we've been doing the whole time, is making the this stuff work in the business world. It's tool use. And so we think a lot about these things. And this slide, by the way, is not originally from Kalin. This is a really cool person from Twitter, who I'll post a link to in a minute here, who came up with this breakdown. But we think about the business implications of generative AI as, like, at this bottom level, these are the things, these evals that you create are the most important part of the system. This is where you define your moat. All of these other things are incidental. So they are not the stuff that is really driving your business. These are optimizations on top of your core business value. So when we go to customers, the first thing we say is, when they talk about how to get ready, what is the thing you're trying to do? What's your specification? And then come up with a prompt, vibe check it, like figure out if this thing is even possible, like run it through the model, and we have tools for that. After you vibe check in and you prove that it's possible, then you iterate. And you create your evals from taking the initial prompt that worked and modifying it and making it robust, making it more performant. Then you come up with some metrics that you can use to define the correctness of the system, and then you just iterate. So you just do that over and over and over again. And so we did this with a number of different customers. I'll talk about a couple of them, but the first one I wanted to talk about is Brainbox AI. So they're trying to decarbonize the built environment. And we worked with them to build a system called Aria, which is a agentful system that can perform actions on the IoT systems of buildings. So previously, their data scientist had to go in and they have like 30,000 different buildings under management with their system across North America, and they previously, to support some of the operations of these buildings, they had to go in and manually write different pieces of code to, like, query systems. And that was their data scientists, their human engineers that were having to go and spend that time to do that. And what we built was a system that could basically spin up a code execution environment to query their various downstream systems, whether that be through Athena or through some other federated query with an OLTP system. It could query those downstream systems, synthesize the data into something, and then serve results. So it was a great engagement with a really forward-leaning company. This happened some time ago. So we built this agent, I think, in 2023.
2023 we started.
Yeah.
September 2023, I think.
So I mean, when people keep talking about agents as like only happening in 2025, it just really rubs me the wrong way. We've been doing this for a while now, and one of the nice things with Bedrock is that we've been able to slot in the new models as they've come out, so the system only gets better and more performant. And by having that eval set within this customer, we're able to very quickly test new models and see if they're going to work or not. So that's why the evals are so important. It's like the brakes on your car. They're not there to slow down. They're there so you can go faster with confidence. So
I like that metaphor.
Yeah,
Yeah.
me too.
And I've just been talking at y'all for a little bit here, so I'll shut up and maybe someone else can chime in or ask any questions.
Yeah, I'm curious to ask. You say you've been doing agents for a long time, and it's really nothing new. It's just something you guys have been doing for a while. How have you seen them evolve in the way that you guys use them and the way your customers use them?
Certainly, the formalization of different schemas for interacting with tools has improved significantly. So we made a big bet when Anthropic released MCP model context protocol back in November 24th of 2024.
What feels like 3 lifetimes ago, but was in fact only like 6 months.
It is in Gen AI, it is.
But we sort of read through that specification, and I have a screenshot of a message somewhere where the day it came out, I was like, hey, this is pretty good. And I think people forget, actually, OpenAI had something similar very early on, but I think it wasn't the right time, and it didn't have the open protocol component of it that MCP does with multiple contributors from various different industries. So I think Anthropic got the timing right, and they got the setup right for the model context protocol. We tend to use LangGraph a lot. There's a natural language library from Stanford called DSP that we'll use a lot. Strands just came out. We haven't used that with a customer yet because it's literally a week old, but we're playing around with that, and we'll be probably taking a deeper look into that one. But LangGraph tends to be our orchestration layer these days.
Interesting. Super cool. Are you using any of the new Bedrock technologies like Bedrock Flow or anything like that, or looking into kind of things like that?
We've certainly looked into it and used it. There's a couple features in Bedrock Agents runtime that we are still waiting on. There's things like cache points, which you can do in Invoke Model and Converse Stream, that we can't get working in Bedrock Agents yet. So for system prompts and tool use, the prompt caching is really, really valuable. So we tend to orchestrate with just regular old Converse Stream or Converse as opposed to the Bedrock Agents runtime. But for stuff where we don't have a need for this caching, we'll absolutely use the Bedrock Agents runtime.
And also, we don't always use Bedrock agents to build agents with Bedrock. So Bedrock agents gives you all the easy-to-use abstractions. I don't know, the action groups, for example. But like Randall was saying, you don't really need all of that to build actual agents. You can just use Bedrock knowledge bases. Knowledge bases is not part of agents. You can use guardrails. We use guardrails, I think, a lot. Bedrock guardrails.
Yeah.
So yeah, we use Bedrock a lot.
So one of, I think like the last slide that you showed, and in a place where I know that a lot of our listeners are really interested, is understanding how orchestration works for multi-agents at scale. Because like multi-agents is an order of complexity, and then at scale is a couple orders of complexity, and you multiply those together and you've got like many orders of complexity. And I in my experience, that's where people customers tend to slow down a little bit as they take a look at that. So here we have a great slide. Can you tell us about that?
Yeah, there's actually, for multi-agents, there's a really nice GitHub repo from AWS called the Multi-Agent Collaboration Orchestrator. We are using that with a customer right now. That customer is Cloud Zero, and I can give a little demo of that multi-agent orchestration. But there's, to Guijay's earlier point, like the orchestration layer is almost incidental. So I think as people with DevOps backgrounds and software engineering backgrounds and people who are used to doing solutions architecture, we perhaps over-index on the orchestration layer and don't index as high as we should on the actual prompts. And I think that's a major transition in the way that programming is happening. Is the orchestration is still vitally important, but you can kind of slide by before you reach a certain scale without perfect orchestration. And in those terms, Bedrock Agents does a lot of the undifferentiated heavy lifting for you. But what you can't slide by on if you're going to try to get like product market fit or scale your use case is the prompts. And that's where we find the biggest improvement in what we're doing is creating the prompts and optimizing the prompts. And we've even built tools for like generatively searching for the ideal prompt for all the evals and things like that. But let me show you an example of one of our customers that uses multi-agent collaboration. So this customer is Cloud Zero. They're also an AWS partner. It's a great group of people over there, and they're really forward thinking in the way they're taking advantage of Bedrock and other technologies. And here I've just said, oh, how can I minimize my DynamoDB cost? And you can't see it in this interface, but I also uploaded a little file, and it's giving me this information, and it's generating this information, by the way, from multiple different agent calls. So one of those calls is analyzing. It's a cloud formation and cost formation analysis tool, and it's going and oh, here's another one. So this was, please give me a detailed analysis of my AWS infrastructure based on the attached files, focused on efficiency and cost effectiveness. And I uploaded just a couple of entries from our CUR, our cost and usage report from AWS. And here it's saying, these are the models that are being used. This is the cost, and then it'll call out to one agent to analyze that CUR. It'll call out to another agent to look across the data that they have accumulated for customers of a similar size to give inferences about, your cost is 50% higher than similar customers with a similar use case, or your cost is 25% lower. And then it'll make detailed suggestions on each service. So that multi-agent collaboration has a big agent at the top that's just responsible for responding to the customer, and then lots of other sub-agents that are going and executing and using different tools to analyze and pick up all of the different things that it needs to do. Yeah, that's Cloud Zero.
That's super cool. Exciting stuff.
And I'm leaving up our call to action slide, but we can take it down and show it at the end. If you want, but
Yeah.
So I'm really curious. I want you to double click a little bit more on how you came to the realization that prompt tuning was maybe more like a more important thing to focus on than orchestration. I bet our listeners would be kind of curious to double click on that, because I'm curious to double click on that.
Yeah. So prompt tuning and retrieval have a much higher ROI than trying to like fine tune a model or use a low rank adaptation or things like that. I think the way that we start is we think about what are the inputs and what are the outputs of this particular inference, and we do that vibe check that I was talking about. Like, can the model even undertake the thing that I'm attempting to do? And if so, then we build robustness around that by introducing different context into that prompt. So, and then, sometimes it will fail when we give it different context. So let's say the prompt is, this is a concrete example from another one of our customers, Nature Footage. We built a generative search over video for them. And the way that works is we use both video and image embeddings in OpenSearch, but we also use generative captions that we've created for these videos. And we just talked about this at a conference called HumanX back in March. But essentially, we started out with a prompt of, please describe this video. And we used the Nova Pro and then the Nova Premiere model once that came out. Please describe this video. That prompt works, but the output of that is insufficient to generate the kind of information we would like to query. So we begin introducing a detailed schema for the output. We want to interpret the output in this particular fashion. Please provide tags, please provide timestamps, please provide this. And we generate a much more robust prompt from that. And then we build additional robustness into that prompt by throwing in edge cases and then providing examples inside of typically XML tags, but you can provide the examples in different ways depending on the model that you're using. We provide examples of good output and bad output, and that builds additional robustness and further directs the model and its latent space towards the kind of tokens that we want to generate at each successive inference. So the advantage there is the pure unit economic advantage of, well, before I get to that, let me just say this. So that's the prompt working, right? Like we got it, we figured it out. It works on 99% of our use cases, and it's robust. But now we take another step where we optimize the prompt to improve the unit economics of it. And I saw there was a question in chat on LinkedIn from Somaya about any metrics on cost savings. And one of the things that we do is we will bring that really large and robust prompt down to optimize as much as possible into the smallest viable prompt, because the tokens cost money. Input tokens cost money, output tokens cost money. So we do that. One of my favorite techniques right now is to use DSP, that natural language framework that is from Stanford that I was talking about earlier, to search for the optimal prompt. And it's really, really good at it. It really works best on text prompts. If you're using image or documents and stuff, it kind of breaks down. But it is a really powerful framework that I'd encourage everyone to go and check out. And it's an open source Python library. We'll optimize that prompt down to be the best possible version of it. And what we do from there is we explore additional ways of improving the cost through things like Bedrock Batch. Is this a use case that requires synchronous streaming, or can I do this in a batch fashion? If I can do this in a batch fashion, that's literally 50% of my cost that I just don't have to pay anymore. We'll look at things like prompt caching. Is the system prompt, or is this initial thing large enough that it fits into the 1024 token or more window for a cache point? That again will save me cost and improve latency. So there's all kinds of different things that we do. And we found that with prompt engineering, we can really drive value very, very quickly. And then if we can't get there with prompt engineering, we do look at fine tuning. And there's also, fine tuning is an umbrella of terms. There's many, many different things under fine tuning. There's things like low link adaptations that only require a few examples. There's things like, continuous pre-training that require thousands of examples, but can introduce new vocabulary to the model, can actually improve your token count in some fashion. There's all kinds of different techniques, and they have different use cases and different returns. But fine tuning tends to be pretty expensive, and at least for now, you have to purchase provision throughput on Bedrock to run those. So the hourly cost gets higher, whereas typically on Bedrock, you're paying per token. And that dollar per token kind of relationship makes the math super, super easy about what the ROI is. But when you get into that hourly cost, you have to have a sustained usage of, we did some calculations and we wound up thinking it was like, okay, if we're doing 2 million tokens per minute, blended rate, then the hourly cost is justified. But anything below that, and we're not quite there yet.
Now, the crazy thing is we started talking about agents and multi-agents, and now we're talking about prompt engineering. Isn't that like so 2023? But it works, and it's the most cost-effective thing we have. I mean, there's really no reason to overcomplicate the architecture or to overcomplicate anything. I think that ties back to the point we hyper focus on the orchestration and on the new tools. MCP isn't that complex, but a lot of other things that came out, and just the idea of multiple agents, each running multiple tools, the supervisor collaborator pattern, that's, for most cases, that's way, way too complex and you don't really need it. Or maybe you do, but you should start with all of these other things.
Yeah, it's very cool. So when you're like creating these architectures with multi-collaboration agents, what does monitoring look like when you have to do that? Like, how do you know the log, like monitoring logs between the conversation between these agents, or looking at how they deal with each other? Can you talk a little bit about how that kind of works?
Yeah, I'll jump in, and then I'll let Guille chime in as well. But we will turn on traceability. That's one of the nice things about Bedrock agents is we just get the traces the whole way through within LangGraph and other libraries, everything from Cruise AI to, there's a million different implementations at this point. Pick your flavor. They all have some form of logging. But one of the most important things for people to do when leveraging Bedrock is to turn on invocation logging. because that gives you the ability to go. So it's in settings. You can do it through the CLI or you can do it through the console, but you just specify a log group. And then if you're doing multimodal inputs, you have to specify an S3 bucket to dump the inputs in. And without Bedrock invocation logging on, unless you have some other form of logging, it can be very difficult to debug things. So Bedrock invocation logging, turn that on. Then, there's other tools that you can use. A lot of people use Datadog, which is another AWS partner. They can be a little expensive though. So whatever you end up using for logging, just make sure you have a consistent trace ID that you can pull in. Most people use Open Telemetry for that. And if you do that, you're kind of, you can figure it out. You can write the right query. It's like, hey, everything comes from this trace ID, but you need to persist it. That's the other thing is tools have to know and be aware that it's coming from this OTel ID. And sometimes that gets in a header, like an HTTP header, and it doesn't get persisted by some downstream framework. So when you're testing those things, make sure you've got it all done. And then the microservice architecture or microservices of agents, where every little agent is doing its own thing, is very powerful and very scalable. But without that trace ID, it can, to your point, become very difficult to manage and debug.
Well said.
Yeah, I think the biggest lesson there is that a single agent is a distributed system, right? It has the LLM portion and it calls different tools. So you have to consider it from the start like a distributed system. A multi-agent architecture, it's multiple distributed systems. So it's gonna be hard.
Yes, well said.
There's one other technique that's available in Bedrock Agents, actually. It's the code interpreter. But if you build your own code interpreter environment, you can pickle Python objects, right? Like or whether it's a container or a VM or whatever it is you're using in these code interpreter environments, save them. Like it costs you basically nothing to like persist a container to S3, right? And then if you need to rejoin that conversation, if you need to start it up again later, unfreeze it, just start it. And Firecracker VM is phenomenal for that sort of work.
I mean, I think I find it super interesting that, we have this Gen AI that changes from day to day. We're creating this innovation, but when we boil down to it, we're still using the kind of management technology we've done for almost 10 years and doing microservices, containers. You still have that visibility and still using AWS that same way, even with this new generation of applications, Gen AI. So it's super interesting.
It is changing a little bit. Didn't DSQL, which just went GA the other day, didn't it just launch with an MCP server as well?
I'm sure it did. It probably something to do change tomorrow. This is great. I mean, the technology, the way it's growing, is super cool.
Yeah.
No, but we were really appreciate your that's like really practical advice. I think there's a lot of times where customers are starting out in this journey and talking with a partner such as yourself who has already slept under their desk for several nights because they had to figure out some of these fairly obvious in retrospect, but not at all obvious at the first go around lessons. I think just saves everybody a huge amount of time and aggravation. And at the end of the day, like I think our customers just want to get going, right? That's what they want to do. Like very few people other than you guys are really that interested in tracing, traceability of agent contacts. Like it's important to do, but it probably doesn't deliver on our customers' primary mission.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, it ends up being, I think a lot of customers want to do a lot of things, and working with a partner like Kalin, we can kind of take care of a lot of that undifferentiated heavy lifting and just go right into letting you focus on your product while we take care of the rest.
Yeah, that's a great way of putting it.
Well
Randall Gide, thank you very much for joining us. It was a pleasure chatting with you, pleasure learning a little bit about what you're doing and how you're doing it. Every time we have a partner on, I'm like, man, we should do this for like the rest of the day. But unfortunately, I probably all have things to do as well. But I just love learning about how you guys are solving these challenges. Really appreciate it. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much for having us, Wayne and Brian, and thanks to all the viewers on LinkedIn and Twitch, and hope to join again soon.
All
Yeah,
right.
thank you.
Thank you, guys.
All right. And we are back. Welcome to Gen AI Live. My name is Brian Terry, and I'm a senior partner solution architect. I'm here with my good friend Wayne. Wayne, how about you introduce yourself?
Thank you, Brian. My name is Wayne Sachs. I'm a partner solutions architecture leader here at AWS. And we are here with you and our guests every Wednesday from 8 to 9 a.m. Pacific, talking about generative AI, our partners, generative AI and our partners, and all of the stuff in between. At the end of the day, we're all just really interested in cool technology and helping our customers make the best of it, and do all of the cool things that they can now do thanks to this emerging technology. And I guess the last thing that we were attempting to do is like get our heads around the speed of evolution, because it is fast. It's very fast.
It's quite amazing. It's like, I used to kind of be frustrated with trying to keep up with everything, but now I find myself excited about hearing about the newest and latest and greatest things. Because those things I'm like, hey, I wish it could do that. And then like wake up the next day and it does.
And all of a sudden it's like, here's 13 new releases and all of your dreams have been met.
Yeah,
It's
so
lovely.
Super exciting. Super exciting. And especially this show, like every time I come to this show, I like learn something new. So I never consider myself an expert, because when I talk to partners like Kalin and some of our value partners, it's always something new to learn, and I'm always excited about it.
Yeah, no, it is humbling and exciting, all at once, right? Like, you just very quickly, I have come to accept that I will never know everything about everything. I won't even know many things about most things. And that's why I think the partners are so awesome, because they can fill in the blanks, of which there are many.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So if this is your first time joining us at Gen AI Live, we're super happy that you're here, and I hope you feel the same way. And we're just going to keep going down that hole of learning new things. So with that said, we've got a couple new guests that we're going to bring on, and they're going to teach us more new things about Gen AI, right?
Let's do it.
Let's do it. So let's bring in our next guest. Hey,
Rafa.
Hello,
Yeah, good to meet you, or good to see you. Glad to have you here. How about you introduce yourselves to our fine audience and tell us a little bit about what you do.
Of course. Thank you, Brian and Wayne. Happy to be here. Hello, everyone. My name is Rafael Reyes. I'm the worldwide go-to-market lead for AWS Transform, the product that we're going to talk about in a minute. And I'm joined by BJ Ranslami, my partner on this big launch that we just accomplished in the last couple of weeks. BJ, a quick intro about yourself.
Yeah, hello everyone. Great to be here. Vijay Rangaswamy, I'm the worldwide partner GTM lead for migrations and modernizations. Happy to meet everyone.
Yeah, welcome. So I understand you guys had an exciting new launch recently. Can we talk a little bit about it?
What did you launch? Tell us.
Yes, great question. Well, we launched a few things, not minimal, but definitely we are very excited about the recent launch. But let me give you some context in terms of what happened, and I can start showing a couple of slides so you get the
Is that the one?
Perfect. So customers and partners have been looking for ways to leverage Gen AI and agentic AI for specific use cases such as migration and modernization. And that's where this play comes in. They want to migrate or modernize those enterprise workloads and help customers reduce their technical debt. So that's one of the priorities that we hear over and over from either customers and partners. They realize that they have challenges with slow transformations given the dependency of legacy systems. They also don't necessarily find all the time the expertise of people that either left the company or moved into different companies to basically do something else, and then they stay with very complex and sometimes large type of applications that is difficult to maintain and support. And then obviously they need to make sure that they use newer architecture, newer technology to make sure that they are efficient in managing those applications. So that is what we'll be hearing from customers and partners. At reInvent in 2014, December, we launched in preview 3 agents with the goal to support these transformations and help customers and partners to achieve that. Fast forward, last May 15, so not even 2 weeks ago, as part of the priority that we set to help customers and partners to migrate and modernize faster to AWS, we launched AWS Transform. That's the new service, agentic AI service that includes 3 agents. Those 3 agents are focused on helping customers accelerate the transformation. But we know customers face the journey which partners help with infrastructure migration, application modernization, and software updates. That's where mainly partners are trying to say, okay, how can I go faster? How can I assess faster? And I can transform faster? This set of pillars that enterprise customers are always bringing in terms of the discussions and acceleration. Gen AI and agentic AI brings these new possibilities from combining AWS expertise on LLMs in Bedrock to graph neural networks and our 19 plus years of experience in helping customers migrate and modernize on AWS. So that's how we set the context in terms of what we need to deliver for the market. And what we did is launch 3 agents that I mentioned. The first agent is VMware for accelerating customers' migration from VMware on-premise workloads to Amazon EC2. That's going to be, nowadays, is becoming a more frequent ask from customers and partners. Can you help me accelerate that? The other one, which is obviously mainframe, is a very important workload for enterprise customers that obviously has been out there for many, many years. And customers want to find ways to modernize that. And specifically, this agent focuses on how these IBM ZOS applications from mostly running or written in COBOL and move or modernize those into Java. So that's what this mainframe agent is doing as part of AWS Transform. And last but not least, we also launched an AWS Transform agent for .NET, which basically helps customers to port their .NET older versions into the latest version, which is cross-platform for .NET. And that's what we focus the customers to make sure that partners are able to help customers address these challenges, making these applications cross-platform, be more flexible in terms of the deployment models they use, running on open platform, and remove some technical debt dependencies that they have, such as the licenses from the software they initially acquired as part of this development. So in summary, that's what we did. That's what we launched. And we have a lot of customers and partners excited about this. Let me just stop for a second and see if there's any questions before I move to the next.
No, super excited.
I do have questions, but I think you're going to get to it. So I'll hold it for a moment.
Okay. So then I think, and this is probably my transition to BJ's part, because as I introduce our roles, so BJ has been working with a lot of the partners, right? AWS partners. And these AWS partners have been helping customers to migrate to AWS for more than a decade, and probably possibly more than that. With the launch of AWS Transform, they have seen how this agentic AI will help them further accelerate customer transformation, from increasing developers' productivity, doing assessment that used to take months, now done in weeks, from transforming code from weeks into days, and sometimes even a couple of hours. So that's some of the benefits that the partners have been already testing, living through the process of doing that. And we have a great set of partners that have already been working with us on that. And we have obviously a few learnings that BJ will share in a minute. But I just want to emphasize how important it is for partners to understand how these workloads will not only complement their offerings, it will make them go faster when it comes to delivering value and delivering outcomes for those customers that are dealing and still trying to figure out how to accelerate the modernization of those enterprise workloads. Hope that makes sense, and it's something that we can chat about it. And obviously, I will look into the comments to see if there's any questions. But with that, I would like to transfer to BJ to give us more of what he has lived with and what partner ecosystem looks like in terms of the demand for the service and the feedback. BJ?
Awesome.
Yeah. Hey, thank you, Rafa. I think great introduction to AWS Transform, and really excited about this launch, especially because being a partner GTM lead, I know there's a huge partner play involved, right? So that's why I wanted to kind of double click on what Rafa said in terms of why this is very relevant to partners. I'll just bring up this slide. So the first and foremost is, let me talk about the opportunity space here for partners. Right? We are seeing that 74% of VMware customers are looking for alternatives. And that's a recent Gartner poll study, and this trend is going to increase. And what we're also seeing is 70% of AWS workload, Microsoft workloads are about to be moved to cloud native and Linux based. So this is a huge opportunity space, and there's a big partner play involved here. And that's where AWS Transform really fits in for three reasons. I think we highlighted the challenges that customers and partners face when it comes to transformation. I think this AWS Transform try to address that problem in a very perfect way. The first is you can help to accelerate your migrations and modernization journey. And you can see some of the metrics that we are showing here in terms of the 4x acceleration that we are getting for .NET porting projects. And in terms of 40% reduction in terms of costs, when it comes to time savings and costs, when it comes to VMware and mainframe migrations and modernizations. And overall, there is a 50% reduction in delivery time for VMware migrations, which is actually a very critical point here, because that's the most challenging part for our partners, because they feel constrained by the lack of expertise and also by the lack of legacy modernization expertise that needs to be there to get this done. So AWS Transform, in a nutshell, tries to kind of give you the acceleration what you need and help you scale for multiple opportunities and for multiple migrations that you would want to do at the same point of time. And
yeah, I just want to double click on that. I mean, those aren't smart numbers, right? I mean, we're talking a 40% reduction in operational costs and a 50% reduction in delivery time for migration. I mean, these are huge numbers.
Absolutely. And we have also this has also been validated by some of our partners who are involved in pilots. And this is also from our internal benchmarking that what we have done. So first, a big thanks to all the partners who have been involved in the pilots programs and gave us a lot of feedback, and which helped to mature this, the service which we have launched just recently, as Rafa was mentioning, just 2 weeks back. And we are kind of looking forward for more adoption and kind of feedback on the service.
So I'm curious, like the space is big, right? Like there's a million things to do in the context of these large migrations and modernization campaigns. When partners are, let's say, looking down, looking at a VMware migration or something, what kind of clues, what keywords, what patterns should they be looking for where they're going to say, I see that pattern, like transform for VMware, let's do it?
Yeah. So VMware is powered by, AWS Transform is powered by GenAI. So obviously it fits into any VMware migrations that you are about to embark on, because it helps you to kind of accelerate either in terms of inventory discovery process or a wave planning, or in terms of network configurations. The interesting part about AWS Transform for VMware is that it helps you to choose in terms of what in which phase you are in when it comes to migration. Say, for example, some partners would have been in an existing engagement where they would have already done the inventory discovery and wave planning. They don't want to redo it. They can just use transform to generate a network configuration and then the deployment, right? Or when you are embarking for a new migration and you are trying to do a kind of a proof of concept, or it's just in the pilot phase of it, you can start with the inventory discovery, wave planning, network configuration, and deployment. So you can go through all the units of the AWS Transform for VMware. So that's where it provides a differentiation. And so that's where partners can leverage at any phase of the projects that they are currently in to see how they can accelerate and make use of AWS Transform to kind of speed up wherever they're stuck with some of these transformation processes. Yeah. Yeah, and I just want to quickly touch upon saying that as we talked about the launch, I just also wanted to say that we are currently in the launch phase, which means that we have just released on GA 2 weeks back, and we are asking partners to kind of create pipeline and to see where they can kind of leverage AWS Transform. I think when you asked the right question. So this is the time where they can kind of explore and try to see where they want to leverage AWS Transform on their existing pipeline and on the projects that they are currently into. And the second thing is we are looking for partners to build offerings and solutions with AWS Transform, because currently many of our partners have migration platforms and solutions and evaluation frameworks. They can kind of embed Transform into their existing platforms or into their existing offerings to take to market. So we encourage partners to kind of create those offerings so that we can help to also work along with them to take it to GTM.
Yeah.
And Q3, we are looking at acceleration starting from June in terms of trying to run a lot of customer roadshows with partners, leverage our EBA programs to kind of scale and reach a larger customer segments. And I think that's the roadmap, and that we want to share it with our partners to kind of really embed with us in the whole GTM process.
So I know, and partners have a variety of ways of getting support when they're sort of kicking the tires on these types of newly launched services. Do you have any suggestions for how our partners should, get up to speed quickly, and where they should turn if they have any questions?
Absolutely, yeah. So we would share the links in terms of the call to action, in terms of the links that you would want to refer to from a storyline perspective. We have a lot of storyline videos to get started for you to kind of get started with the service and learn about it if you're not experienced it till now. But also, as I said, let's work on these, creating a GTM pipeline, other stuff. But there is a jumpstart that's available when it comes to funding, right? If you're stuck with, trying to for large migrations or modernizations, there is funding programs that are available for you to quickly jumpstart your migrations and modernizations, starting from POC. So anytime you have a larger migration play in place, you can always do with a POC or modernization play. You can start with the POC, get the buy-in from the internal stakeholders as well as the customer stakeholders, and then embark on the larger migration and modernization projects. So as you are seeing on the screen here, typically for a migration, you start with the OLA, right, which is a standard optimization licensing agreement process, and which is given free to partners. You can leverage the OLA funding, and then you can leverage the MAP funding, MAP 2.0, right, which also helps you with the one-step modernization, which has always been a request from partners to help with MAP funding for modernization. So that's unlocked now, which you can leverage. And as I was talking about, if you're planning to do proof of concepts before you embark on a larger modernization path, you can leverage your POC fundings that are available. And especially for Microsoft workload modernizations, you have this Microsoft modernization program, which you can leverage when you use AWS Transform. So these are there's a lot of funding that's available, and I think it's also in our partner central. You can refer that, and please do reach out to us. If you need any specific asks or any specific clarity regarding a funding or a POC or any strategic engagement that you want to engage in. So that's why EBAs are a great way to engage with us if you are looking for a strategic engagements, because it's an extended version of an immersion day where we do EBAs for like 3 to 5 weeks, and by the end of it, you kind of get a minimal viable product to be demonstrated to customer. or taken to customer to production. So, so these are some of these, I would say, mechanisms and funding options that you can leverage to kind of jumpstart your AWS transform. And I would also leave a quick call to action, but if there are any questions before that I can take before
Well,
we.
I do have another call, another question for you. What so we've been, I know that I know for sure that you've been working with partners on this for a while now. Certainly prior to the full GA. What kind of feedback are you getting? What are you hearing from our partners that they particularly appreciate about the service?
Yeah, so thanks for asking the question. So this is an opportunity for me to thank all the partners who have been involved in the pilots. So for the last, I would say, 5 months, right, from reInvent 2024 preview launch, and we had more than 40 plus partners involved in pilots, specifically closely requests. And in spite of that, there are other partners who are testing the service and sharing feedback with us. So the number one is that we got a very positive reaction from our partners and reception from our partners. And they are very excited to kind of leverage this kind of an agentic service to accelerate their stalled migrations or modernizations. Especially for .NET, they found it as a huge an uplift, because there is a lot amount of legacy code base that's not being touched now because of the lack of legacy domain expertise, or it's too complex for us to manage and it's too labor intensive, right? So partners are really welcoming this because it gives them an uplift to kind of get into a porting stage, and then they move on to cloud native or they move on to Linux. So first is the positive reception from partners. But at the same time, I also want to thank partners for their extensive testing and feature requests that they have brought in, which has really shaped the service over the past 5 months, right? So when we launched it in preview, especially for VMware migrations and for .NET, so there were many requests that came in terms of supporting private NuGet packages for .NET. We need it because that's something that we see a lot in our legacy code base. And there was a request for multiple VPC endpoint configurations for VMware. So those feature requests and issues that partners brought in really helped to shape the service, and which showed that they are keen to adopt the service in a much more bigger way. And we see this adoption pattern increasing as the day progresses. And we request our partners to keep bringing in the feature requests that you want in the future releases. And we are fully committed to get this going, because we see a good level of adoption at this stage, and with the amount of feature requests that we are getting in, it shows the trend that there is a huge adoption trend. Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah,
And
no, feature requests are like it's like the golden nugget of usage, right? Because that really means that like your customers, your partners are thinking about it, playing
Yeah.
with it, like running it against the hard things. Because if it was just the easy stuff, then it would just wouldn't provide a ton of value anyways. So yeah, it's really exciting to see all of like the inventive ways that partners are imagining using things. It's like one of my favorite parts about working here is sometimes you'll get a feature request from a partner. You're like, huh, would never have even imagined that we could use that service to do that thing. What an interesting idea, right? Like it's
Absolutely.
yeah.
Yeah, I think I was talking about the one of the features of AWS Transform, right? You can use it for any specific agent task in terms of wave planning or a network discovery or a deployment. So that actually came from a partner. They said, we need this kind of dynamic scoping, right? Because we are in multiple phases of the programs or in different phases of our projects, right? So we can't do the entire workflow. So these are the feedbacks that really kind of shaped us up. And we listen to our partners and we actually work backwards from partners. So it's these feedbacks really helped us, and we expect to get more feedback and kind of make more better service alignment on this.
BJ, if I may, just to emphasize that, because as we live through this process, I once again plus one on thanking the great partners that we have out there, because they are bringing some of the complexity and the enterprise scenarios that they build on a day-to-day basis. And it's important for us to listen to that feedback, but also there's also a great opportunity for them to extend the current deliverables of these AWS Transform agents into something that they might have already built, curated, and present to customers, So that extensibility part is also critical for us to accelerate. And we are actively looking for those partners that have built their own I will say, complementing parts of using Gen AI. And I can name some of the partners that we have been working with. But this is an invitation to all partners that are building their own tooling and also able to leverage the current agentic AI. I think we have a great example earlier with Kalin, how they're doing their own extension and delivering on their AI journey. And AWS Transform is a foundation, if you will, of what we can deliver together, and also accelerating that transformation. And as Vijay pointed out, the feedback we're getting from customers and partners is that this complement or duo of having agentic AI foundation with extensions from partners is really helping customers address those either edge cases or larger set of scenarios that at the moment we probably haven't captured yet, because it's a nascent and an evolution on the journey of adopting agentic AI.
Yeah, this is super interesting. I see with the launch, this thing has a lot of capabilities, right? There's all these cool things. But if you were to look into a crystal ball right now, where do you see this technology going to, and how do you see it grow?
Great question. So one of the areas that we are also looking for is extensibility of this platform, because as agentic AI is becoming very prevalent in the market, we see partners building their own agents, right, for their specific tasks, and which are very unique with respect to the specific customer or the opportunity that they're dealing with or the situation that they're dealing with. And what we see is that extensibility is going to play a big part for partners down the lane, specifically integrating with AWS Transform. So we are working towards the extensibility framework for AWS Transform. And we encourage partners to kind of contribute / reach out to us in terms of how they are looking at extensibility requirements, right? And how they want to integrate with AWS Transform while they integrate their existing solutions that they have already built or the new solutions that they are building. So extensibility is a very key roadmap feature that we are looking at. While AWS Transform will come out with this one set of new features and functions, we also wanted to leverage on the other platforms that are built by our partners. So extensibility is something that's very key. And we are looking at extensibility through MCP or A2A kind of protocols to get this solved. So definitely look forward to that. And that's going to be a critical path in our roadmap.
And I will say, if they haven't started, the partners haven't started, probably it will be great for them to start getting their kick the tires and also understand how this AWS Transform will help them. There's as you explore, and we post the link on the comments so you can take a look. But one of the key things that as a partner, you can really embed yourself and start playing with it, if you will, is that's two flavors that the AWS Transform comes with. In the web interface, where you basically use the product in a chat type mode, and also for those that are developers and have the preferred IDE, you can also launch and use AWS Transform within your IDE. So give it a try. Make sure that you have the right setup and set up your account, so we can obviously connect with you if there's any open items that you have. But yes, for by all means, let's get this momentum going. We're happy to take your feedback and also co-develop new things that will address customer requirements.
Yeah,
that was awesome. I love it. I've been, I and my partners have been playing with Transform for quite some time. I am super jazzed by the stuff that you guys can do, and ultimately by like what we can all do together to help our customers transform themselves. If we can't use that word too many times.
yeah. So just to
Rafa, VJ, yeah, really appreciate.
I just take a minute, just a closing thought. The call to action is very important. Please do kind of register for GTM or reach out to us if you're looking for any specific things.
Right on.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, everyone. Have a great day.
Thank you to all of our viewers. Thank you for joining us. Brian, thank you for being you.
See you next time.